I'm finally back to do my next video review. Um, like I mentioned in my last video, this time my friend Chris and I are going to be doing things, a little bit differently than we've done in the past. Because instead of reviewing two characters this time, we're going to be talking about our thoughts on, the upcoming reboots of the shows Hey Arnold and DuckTales. And I'm here today to do my DuckTales video. And he did his Hey Arnold video a couple days ago. Also, I do apologize in advance if this video is a bit all over the place, since it is different than anything that I've done before, like I just mentioned. Hopefully, I can keep it from being too all over the place, since I do have a list of things I'm going to discuss. And they are... why I loved the original show, why I'm excited about the reboot, the potential and new possibilities of the reboot that the reboot has nowadays, problems people had with the original, what they could do to improve on the original, and fears I have of for the reboot. Excuse me. And anyway, obviously I'm excited about about this upcoming show, because if you guys know anything about me at all, you know that I loved the original DuckTales to death, and a lot of the characters from it, like Scrooge, Webby, Launchpad. So yeah, I'm obviously extremely excited about it, and if you don't know that I'm a diehard DuckTales fan, then you've obviously been living under a rock and don't know anything about me. But starting with why I loved the original. Well, for one thing, the characters in it did have a lot of depth to them. They had a lot of depth compared to a lot of characters in the kids' shows back then, and unfortunately compared to a lot of kids' shows nowadays. I mean, when you look at kids' shows back then, like Darkwing Duck, which was kind of a spin-off of DuckTales. I mean, your two stars of that show, Darkwing and Goslin, really had little to no depth to them. I mean, Darkwing was really nothing more than a egocentric guy who went into crime fighting to become rich and famous. And at the end of every episode, he generally realizes that egocentrism doesn't get you anywhere, and realizes this because deep down he loves his daughter Goslin, and she's nothing more than your generic, stereotypical, one-dimensional tomboy who goes around sticking her nose where it doesn't belong and pulling pranks and that kind of stuff. And when you look at the shows nowadays, uh, like uh, Jesse, or I think the kids are now in a show called Bunked. Um, um, the, the kids in that show are nothing but your um, stereotypical spoiled rich brats. Whereas if you look at DuckTales, um, I mean, you've got characters like you do have some characters that don't have a lot of depth to them, like Huey, Dewey, and Louie, which I'll talk talk more about in later complaints. They didn't have a lot of depth to them. They were just kind of um, standard adventurous prankster kids. But you also had characters like Webby, who was a solid three-dimensional character who was a girly girl that was into adventurous things, but still very much into girly things like dollies and tea parties and that sort of thing. Um, but um, um, but was also shown as being able to keep up with the boys and being as competent and confident, if not more so than they were, and smarter, if not more so than they were in a lot of areas. And she was shown saving the day a lot of times, but she was also shown as being flawed and being a gullible, ignorant child who played the damsel in distress a lot of times. Then you had characters like Launchpad, who, even though he wasn't very bright and was incompetent in a lot of areas, he was shown as being competent in other areas and was shown as being heroic at times. And he was given a he was given a backstory that showed that that he wasn't just a one-dimensional idiot. That it showed that how because he was the only member of his family who couldn't land. Couldn't land very well and crashed a lot. He felt like he brought shame to his family, so he ran away from home. And then when his family came to visit Duckburg and perform at an air show, he really wanted to prove to them again that he could be competent, and ended up saving the day. Then even though she wasn't in it very often, you had characters like Goldie, who, even though she was a elderly woman, she could really kick butt, and showed that that you you were only as old as you feel, and didn't take it and any kind of nonsense from anybody, even her ex-boyfriend Scrooge. And of course, my favorite character, Scrooge, is very, 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 very complex. Yeah, he's greedy and does have his mean moments, but he's shown as caring about his family and friends much more than money. And even though he may do some things that appear greedy on the surface, um, even though he may do some things that appear greedy on the surface, um, a lot of times he does them out of the goodness of his heart, like oh keeping Launchpad and Gyro as his employees. Um, he does that because he keeps them as his employees and pays them at least a small wage, because he doesn't want to throw money at them that they haven't earned, but he also knows that they're not the best at what they do. So he doesn't. So nobody else would hire them, and he doesn't want them to be out of the job. So yeah, while it may appear greedy on the surface, him uh, keeping them employed, paying them a small wage, he actually does that out of the goodness of his heart. And while he may appear overly critical sometimes, um, often he does that in an effort to give some constructive criticism, but he's just not very good at expressing it. Like in the DuckTales movie, where uh, Launchpad trips while he's riding his camel, and he goes, "Launchpad, can't you even ride a camel without crashing it?" Um, yeah, that may appear a little overly critical, but he's more rather than just criticizing Launchpad for no reason. He's um, more trying to encourage him to uh, um, do better, and just give him some constructive criticism. He's just not very good at expressing it. So sorry for rambling on about this, but the and a big reason that I like the show is that it goes against my least favorite cliche, and that's that that's the one-dimensional wealthy character that's only in there for a plot device. I mean, so often, whenever there's a wealthy character in a show, they're always either a greedy miser or a spoiled rich brat or something like that, uh who's only in there to cause a problem that the heroes have to fix, or uh they're some kind of Richie Rich type character who throws money at everybody and is there to provide the money that their friends need to do whatever they need to do in the movie, or whatever story they're in, and I just hate that. And which is interesting that Chris mentioned in his Hey Arnold video that one of the big reasons he likes the show is that it goes against his least favorite cliche, the one-dimensional bully. But yeah, Scrooge is very far from the one-dimensional plot device rich character that I so despise. And yeah, there are some one-dimensional rich characters in like the uh, billionaires clubs that he's a member of and that sort of thing that are used for plot devices, but they're pretty minor characters, so I can't point any fingers at them for that. And um, so some of the other reasons that I love it are just the atmosphere of it, the adventurous atmosphere of it, and that sort of thing. Anyway, I've rambled on about this enough. Moving on. Why I'm excited about the reboot. Um, well, as you already know, I absolutely adore the original, so I'm hopeful that the reboot will be at least as good, if not better, than the original. That's not to say that I'm not somewhat nervous about it, but hopefully the reboot will be as good, if not better, than the original, and hopefully that they can do some improvements on the original, like adding some depth to Huey, Dewey, and Louie, exploring more of Scrooge and Webby's relationship, that sort of thing. Um, I mean, I don't really know what else to say except that I absolutely adored the original. Um, that's not to say that it doesn't have some flaws, but hopefully those will be those will be fixed. Most of those will be fixed in the reboot, and hopefully, um, hopefully the reboot will be will introduce this generation to to a decent kids show. So I don't really have a lot to say about this. I pretty much went over it already, rambling on in that first in that first part. The potential and new possibilities that the reboot has nowadays. Well, hopefully, like I said, hopefully they can improve on some of the flaws of the original, like giving Huey, Dewey, and Louie some depth, exploring Scrooge and Webby's relationship more. Hopefully, they can actually have a decent kids show on. Sorry, my throat was getting dry. I mean, I can't really think of many kids shows on nowadays that I particularly like. I mean, the last one that was on that I loved, and I know, and sorry, Chris, I know you weren't a fan of this, but the last one on that I really loved was Phineas and Ferb, and it's off now. But I mean, when you've got shows like Gravity Falls, Jesse, Austin and Ally, and now Bunked and that kind of stuff. No thanks. We really need some decent kid shows. So hopefully having at least a semi-decent kid show would inspire some of the other kids show writers and companies to produce some other decent ones. And hopefully it would also make characters like Scrooge and especially Webby more popular characters. And yeah, I know Scrooge is pretty well known already. Not as well known as I'd like him to be. I mean, I mean, obviously he's not as well known as the six main characters in the Mickey and Friends franchise, like Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, Goofy, and Pluto. But even when you get into the secondary characters like Huey, Dewey, and Louie, Max, Clarabelle Cow, he's still pretty minor compared to them. So hopefully it would make him a more prominent character in the Mickey and Friends franchise. And hopefully Webby would be able to become more prominent too. And hopefully some of the other lesser known characters like Launchpad, Goldie, and some of the others also would be able to become more prominent too, because they're all really good characters that need to be recognized. And also, hopefully, it would hopefully that that gosh awful graphic novel that Don Rosa did would not be the most commonly known and popular backstory uh, for uh, for Scrooge. Hopefully, they could expand on his backstory more in DuckTales. For those of you who have not read The Life and Time of Scrooge McDucks, I envy you. And yes, there was actually a DuckTales backstory uh, of him, and that's the one that I go by. I don't care. I don't care how freaking popular the Life and Time of Scrooge McDuck is, but I'm sticking to the DuckTales one, even though it is just a short 20-minute episode. But hopefully they'd be able to expand more on the DuckTales version of his backstory and be able to make it more well known than that gosh awful graphic novel. Moving on. Problems people had with the original. Well, unfortunately, most of the problems that people had with the original were either um, parents who thought that Scrooge was too mean and too harsh a hero for a kids show, or fans of the comic book version of him, especially Rosa fans, who thought that he was too soft and not complex enough, and that he was somehow disrespectful to the original version of Scrooge. Or I should say to the real version of Scrooge, if you want to get into that technicality. The parents, I suppose, I can see their perspective a little bit. I suppose I can see their perspective a tiny bit. I mean, he does have a harsher personality than he does have a harsher personality than the average Disney hero or heroine. I will admit that. As much as I adore him, I'll admit that. Um, and he is more complex and harder to understand, especially for a child, than the average Disney hero or heroine. I mean, as a child, when I was watching the show, um, he I didn't hate him or anything, but he definitely wasn't one of my favorite fictional characters at the time. Um, he did come across as a bit too mean for my taste because I didn't understand a lot of the things he was doing and why he was doing them. Um, but as much as I adore him nowadays, um, I will admit that he did come across a bit mean to me as a child, and I did have a hard time understanding him back then. But like I said earlier, that's because he's a more complex character than the average Disney hero or heroine, and I don't think that he's supposed to be an ideal role model. I think that he's supposed to be more like Beast or Anastasia Tremaine or somebody like that. Um, somebody who is quite flawed, but is attempting to overcome their flaws. Um, not a horrible role model, but not somebody like Bill, or even not somebody like Bill, who's the ideal role model, or even Ariel, who's just a realistic teenager, um, uh, who learns from her mistakes or something like that. He's supposed to be more of a very flawed character who is working on overcoming his flaws at the moment. So is he a horrible role model? No, but he is definitely more flawed than the average Disney hero or heroine. Um, and he's supposed to be more of a role model for somebody um who has had a lot of problems in their life and is working on overcoming them at the moment, I'd say. and um and 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 I think that that's something that parents need to be aware of, that he's not really he's not really intended for the average child mm, to try to model themselves after all the time. Um, and as far as the comic book fans and Rosa fans having a problem with him, um, For starters, as far as him being disrespectful to the real Scrooge. No offense, but that's kind of like saying that the original Scrooge is the real Scrooge is kind of like saying Steamboat Willie is the only real Mickey Mouse. And that all modern versions of him are somehow disrespectful to that. And if you like the comic book version of him and the Rosa version of him, that's fine. I'm not going to try to. I don't want to fight with you about it, but Rosa's Scrooge is nothing but a egocentric jerk who drags his family into harm's way for his own selfish gain. And I don't care how much you sugarcoat it by saying, "Oh well, deep down he loves his family. He's not really greedy, and the only reason he saves his money is for the memories of it." He's still an egocentric jerk. And having somebody like him as the protagonist as a kids show wouldn't make sense. Parents would be even more hacked off about that than they would with the DuckTales version of Scrooge. If you like Rosa's Scrooge, fine. I'm not going to try to convince you not to, but he's not a suitable protagonist for a children's show or even a Disney comic, in my opinion. And that's all I have to say about that. And another problem that people have had with the original is that Webby was the token chick, and I've gone over that several times. I don't know what to say except that she's got much more depth to her than the boys do. The boys are pretty two-dimensional characters, whereas she has a solid three-dimensional personality. So I don't get the deal with the I do not get the deal with token chicks, with hating token chicks. I mean, and if you're going to hate her just because she's the token chick, then that's your loss. Because she's a much more well done character than a lot of than a lot of characters that I've seen that aren't the token chick. Merida from Brave. She's the protagonist of her film, and far from the token chick in that. And she's a much worse done character than Webby ever was. She's mean-spirited and disrespectful to her parents, especially her mother, and doesn't seem to care if war would start if she doesn't get married, and doesn't seem to care if she might poison her mother. She's a much worse done character than Webby ever was, despite the fact that Webby was the token chick. Moving on. What they could do to improve the original. Well, there are a lot of things that they could do to improve the original, like like for starters, giving Webby more airtime, and exploring her relationship with Scrooge a lot more, and downplaying her grandmother. Honestly, in fact, I wouldn't mind it if they completely got rid of her grandmother and made Scrooge her legal guardian. Although, if you know, you probably already knew that if you knew me at all, since in my fan fiction I I killed off her grandmother and made Scrooge her guardian. Yeah, I know. No offense to Mrs. Beakley fans, but I never cared much for her. Other things that they could do is like I said before, give Huey, Dewey, and Louie more depth to their personality. Give them individual personalities where they weren't absolute jerks like in Quack Pack. Get, give Goldie some more screen time. I'd also like to see some more of Launchpad's family and see more of their relationship together. Also, I wouldn't mind more characters from the Mickey and Friends franchise, like Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, Max. All of them at least making some occasional guest appearances, since pretty much the only hint of them that we ever get is in one DuckTales comic when Donald is on vacation from the Navy and ends up tagging along on a treasure hunt. He's regretting it and says, "Oh boy, I knew that I should have visited. I knew that I should have visited Mickey this time." That's pretty much the only hint of any characters from the Mickey and Friends franchise outside the Duck family. So yeah, it would be it would be cool to see them at least make a few guest appearances. Also, like I said, expanding some more on Scrooge's backstory that they did in a 20-minute episode, maybe making a made-for-TV movie that explains some more about it, since it's kind of hard to squeeze a backstory into 20 minutes, and not doing it based off of the life and times of Scrooge McDuck. And I can't really think of anything else. I'm sure that there are a lot of other things they could do to improve on the original. But yeah, to me, the big thing is giving Webby some more screen time and exploring her and Scrooge's relationship more. And finally, fears that I have for the reboot. Well, yeah, there are several of them that I have. Like in a graphic novel that came out a couple of years ago, I think back in 2011 or 2012, they had changed Webby's personality a lot and made her like a hardcore feminist, kind of a cross between Merida and Goslin. But I mean, she still had some of her personality. I mean, she was still kind of into girly things, but she was much bossier. Like, she was going around demanding that Scrooge give a lot of the treasures that he had found to poor people and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm hoping that she doesn't end up with that personality in the reboot. Also, there's a group of people that hated her original personality. A group of Phineas and Ferb fans that hated her original personality and are campaigning for her to become more like Isabella from Phineas and Ferb. And as big a fan I am of Phineas and Ferb, I never cared for the character Isabella. She's nothing but a one-dimensional, boy-crazy piece of arm candy for Phineas. I mean, she, whether she's helping him with one of his inventions, trying out an invention, earning a badge, showing off a badge, whatever. It's in an effort to get him to become her boyfriend. So the last thing I want is Webby to be turned into a boy crazed idiot like that. Some other fears I have are that they're going to get rid of all the depth that Scrooge has and turn him into the one-dimensional jerk like he is in the Don Rosa comics, or like he was, or like he was in the original comics. Before they started developing his character. Also, this may seem like kind of a silly fear, but I'm also hoping that they don't make Scrooge too old in this. There are certain versions of him, like the Don Rosa version, where he is ancient. Like according to the Don Rosa backstory in the Life of Times and of Scrooge McDuck, he didn't. He wasn't supposed to have met his nephews till he was in his 80s, and that's one of the reasons why he was supposed to be such a crotchety old man. And the Rosa fans say, oh, that just makes him cooler because he's so old, but he can still kick butt, even though in a lot of the stories he's nearly 100 and blah blah blah. I don't know. I don't like to think of him as being that old. And in the original DuckTales series, there are several hints. They may be subtle, but there are several hints that he wasn't that old. Like if you watch the DuckTales episode, "The Sweet Duck of Youth," where he goes looking for the Fountain of Youth. There's a hint in that because it's his birthday and he's only got approximately 60 candles on his cake, give or take a few of them. Then in the DuckTales movie, The Treasure of the Lost Lamp, he refers to 40 years as being most of his life, because he says that it took him 40 years to find the treasure, and then then he shouts, "You thieving dog! I spent most of my life searching for that treasure." So there are a couple of other hints throughout the series that he's only 60 some years old. Definitely not as ancient as Rose's Scrooge and a couple of other versions of that. So yeah, while he is a senior citizen in DuckTales, he's not ancient. And I just prefer not to think of him as ancient. While that may seem like a silly fear, he just seems much more capable, and that sort of thing. he just seems much more capable in DuckTales than he does in a lot of the comics where he's portrayed as being really, really, really old. And like I said, I'm hoping that they keep the characters depth to them, that they don't decide to make Scrooge a one-dimensional greedy jerk and miser, but they also don't decide to go too far the other way and make him a Richie Rich type character who throws money at his friends and that sort of thing. I'm hoping that they don't make Launchpad nothing but a slapstick comedy relief character. Nothing but a slapstick comedy relief character with no depth to him. I'm hoping that they don't make Webby nothing but a one-dimensional girly girl or a one-dimensional tomboy or something like that. And I'm also hoping that that because Webby was I'm also hoping that because Webby was unpopular with a lot of fans, they don't reduce her screen time too much, or just decide that they're going to get rid of her at some point during the series. That's about all that I have to say. I am definitely excited about the series, but I also do have plenty of fears about it. Even if I do end up hating this series, the original DuckTales will probably always and forever remain my favorite TV series. The link to Chris's Hey Arnold video will be in the description box below. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Bye, and see you next time.